Hello and welcome to Agents of Nonprofit. My name is Alexander Lapa, but please call me Alex. And I'm here to talk to everyday superheroes helping nonprofits using technology. Today I'm joined by guest Ryan Ozimek to talk about a bit about him, his background, and some of the products that his company offers. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Good to be here.
For folks who are meeting you for the first time, could you share a bit more about who you are and what you do?
So I'm Ryan Ozimek. I run a company called PICNet. We're here in Washington, D.C. We're a 21-year-old business helping nonprofit organizations do a ton of great things, specifically around online engagement, and more specifically with our Soapbox Engage products. So we've been keeping busy for 2+ decades now.
That's amazing. How did you get started in it? What was inspiring for you to join this space?
That's a good question. I always knew that I wanted to get involved in public service. At the same time, when I was a kid, I grew up in Silicon Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when your dad works at technology startups, when you're a kid in the 80s, it means you're just surrounded by technology and all the cool things that are happening. So for me, it seemed like, gosh, it'd be great to be involved in public service, be great to be involved in technology. That's kind of the tinkerer in me. Mashing those up together sounded pretty interesting. So like from the time I was just like a kid, I knew I liked to be involved in business and technology. When I started to grow up and I was in college, I really enjoyed public policy. I went to graduate school down at UCLA for public policy. It just seemed like a natural connection of the two of them. And here I am just a couple of years later.
So that was your first intro. Like you didn't do anything in the for-profit space. You went straight for nonprofit. Is that what I understand?
That's right. And it's been as wild a ride as you can imagine. You know, when we first started the business, it was an idea at our public policy program at UCLA. And it was myself and one of my good buddies at the time back then trying to say, well, hey, could we take what Ryan was doing as like consulting gig work on the side, where I was helping build databases for organizations, like just to pay my way through grad school and college. And I said, well, gosh, what if we just made this the thing, like that the business was helping nonprofit organizations get up and running with technology, and kind of skip the whole part of everything else that was happening. Like it was the middle of the .com boom and bust, and like sock puppet pets were trying to sell .coms and all that craziness. So in a crazy world, we ended up focusing on the sector that probably has the tightest budgets in the nonprofit space. The technology was completely changing. The economy was about to implode in the United States. And we said, let's start a business and let's help those nonprofit people. So it was pretty surprising to tell my friends and family that's what I was going to do.
I think that's awesome. I heard actually there was a lot of businesses that started around that time as people, especially after the dot-com burst, that people were losing their jobs. So they started to be more inspired and seek passions, careers that fulfilled their passions, basically. So that's great that you were able to do that.
Totally. Yeah. And it was, it's actually nice. You know, it was great that the hype of the .com era was kind of exiting the balloon, because that meant that the folks that were going to get down and dirty and get to work and build the technology to enable change makers around the world, like they were going to be able to get back to work again. Because as you said, like less money was flowing to like ideas that didn't really make any sense. And so the focus and the energy that was left over, and where I found my roots, was really in the open source community of just like the bootstrappers, the volunteers, the people that were tinkering on projects because they knew the work had to be done, and that the cause that was going to support this work didn't necessarily have the money, but it had the passion and the interest behind it. So I totally agree with you.
Awesome. And so the company name that you created was is called PICNet. What's the
Yes.
history of that? How did that come up?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So very few people know that. So this might be an exclusive. This could be a podcast exclusive. Um, Early when starting a company, you have to have a business name, of course, and you
Hmm.
need to file that. So we were in California and we were probably having a couple of drinks late at night after going to class and whatnot. And we said, we need to come up with a name. We're going to file this articles of incorporation. And back then we were really focused on like building systems that would allow people to communicate and tell their stories. And this is like the early days of blogging, really before blogging was a thing. And so we had called ourselves the Political Information Center Network.
Hmm.
And the idea was we were going to help organizations essentially build networks of websites to communicate with each other, because back then, the only information you could get was from CNN or whatever the major news networks had to publish. And we thought, well, gosh, wouldn't it be great if there was a world in which people could micro publish directly from organizations on this new web thing that was happening? So the Political Information Center Network was born. We had to come up with an acronym for it because we were public policy wonky people and everything has to have an acronym. So PICNet sounded like picnic, and a picnic sounds like a fun thing to do. So
Hmm.
PICNet became the name.
That's great. And then, so from that company, you decided then to start creating a suite of applications because you don't just have one, you have a whole bunch of them, right? And you put that under a brand called Soapbox or Soapbox Engage. How was that? How did that start?
Yeah, so it's funny because the story runs circular in the technology space. You see things created, destroyed, rebirth again and again, and that's no different for us at PICNet. Once we figured out in the early days that what we were trying to achieve with the Political Information Center Network wasn't going to make it, we actually realized, well, actually maybe making software that we can then distribute to organizations to publish and communicate and to engage with different communities online could help us reach our mission and helping empower organizations and democratizing technology in our little corner of it. So Soapbox was born back in 2007 now, 2008, with the idea of what if we built a software as a service solution that you didn't have to install somewhere, you didn't have to download, and that didn't have to stick on somebody's computer, but it could be used in the cloud before we could describe things as clouds or not clouds, to let people essentially engage with their community first through full websites. And then over time, Soapbox Engage became much more focused in saying, how do we help organizations specifically around like fundraising and advocacy and events and now a whole variety of
So first websites, then uh, you said events or donations was
yeah,
next.
donations and then events,
Donations.
because once you build the website, people needed the donation
Yeah.
pages. And then once they had the donation pages, they began to realize, well, let's have events to have people give us donations. And then we said, wait a second, the website is not really what we need to focus on. We need to focus on all these touch points that everybody's finding a lot of friction in. So the focus became the apps rather than the entire website.
And today I listed or I read that there's about 8 apps that you have, not including add-ons. So let's just go through each one briefly to describe what they do
Yeah,
and
definitely.
how they can help. So the first one we already talked about was donations. So can you just go a bit further on what the app does for donations?
Yeah, imagine you're a fundraiser at a nonprofit organization. You're trying to do online donations, and you're struggling connecting your say Salesforce database with a payment gateway like Stripe, and you barely understand the credit card industry, and you're just trying to build beautiful pages. The donations app makes it easy for you to create as many different campaigns as you want, and goes as far as doing team fundraising, crowd fundraising, peer-to-peer fundraising. The sky's the limit when it comes to really online fundraising page.
So you provide the building blocks then to be able to do some kind of donation form, accepting multiple kinds of payments, multiple kinds of, I guess each organization can have multiple pages of donations, maybe specific to certain causes or campaigns, all running at the same time, and then all the money just flows right in to Stripe or some
That's
other payment gateway.
Yeah, that's right. And I think from our perspective, we want to kind of have I'm trying to say like something like power in simplicity. Like we're trying to keep it simple so that if you're
Mhm.
a small organization, you're the only person doing fundraising, how do you just build a campaign page? How do you build a Giving Tuesday page? And how do you make it beautiful? But at the same time, like let's not just make it simple. Like let's give you all the under the hood tools you need to like dig deep to like integrate with your database, to connect to your payment gateway for credit card processing, and then go far beyond that in terms of customizations and different configurations you can get for every type of different type online fundraising campaign.
Wow. Yeah, it's exhaustive. And I remember there's not just one-time donations, you also support reoccurring donations as well.
That's right. Yeah. So one-time donations and recurring donations at different intervals. The idea being that what can we do to help an organization move more donors into becoming sustaining donors? How do we make it easy for them to go from just one time to recurring, say, monthly giving? So we've made that really simple and easy through the product. And with the donations app, we also want to close the loop with your marketing team so that anything that you're doing to drive people to come to these pages, you can make sense of what's working, what's not working through some really powerful analytics there to then make the tweaks, make the changes, do the experimenting you need to make sure you're getting the most out of these pages.
That's awesome. So that's the donation app. The next one on the list is the event app. What does that one do?
Yeah. So if you want to raise money or if you want to be able to put on programmatic efforts, you got to let people know that an event is taking place. You got to make it easy for them to register for it. So all of Soapbox Engage's primary focus is engage with your community, get them to take an action, get them to donate, or get them in this case to register for an event. So the events app has, a discoverability process or components to it where you can build beautiful monthly calendars, listing of upcoming events. You can push them out over different RSS feeds across different websites. So we want to make it easy for folks to be able to find your events. And then when they want to register for the events, this can be as simple as the happy hour or a meetup or a one-off instructional engagement, all the way through to more complex elements like maybe like a small conference or a series of instructional workshops that you might have. The events app is meant to be flexible enough to be able to handle one-off use cases from individual, say, galas or fundraisers, all the way through to more complex use cases where you might have different ticket levels with different pricing for different days that are happening across multiple weeks. We really want to be able to provide that spectrum for all different shapes and sizes of org.
That's awesome as well. I'm going to say this word awesome too many times. I apologize in advance. So I guess within the event, you also have the ability to offer the choice of different kinds of products, like a ticket or a table or an auction type event. Like, what are the sub offerings within the event app?
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations they find that putting on the event can be challenging, and then getting people to register for it can even be more challenging depending on the configuration you've got, just the business logistics of running the event. So what we've tried to do with our events app is to have everything come down to essentially making payments or registering for either tickets or giving donations. And I think combining those two together is useful. If you've got like a free ticketed event and you want people to register for that, but also make a donation as part of that process, we can help you with that. If you're looking to be able to say, hey, we've got a table of 10 that we want people to be able to register for, and that's going to include 10 tickets, or it's a minimum of X number of tickets, then you get this particular price break or this price level. Those types of features and functionalities are built into it to make it simple for the organization that is putting on a gala that's rather than one-off ticketing. Maybe they're doing table-based ticketing, or maybe they've even got something like a team captain approach. Like maybe Alex, you and I are team captains for a table, and it's our job to essentially help the organization sell the tickets for that table. Now, of course, you're going to get more people coming to your table because you're more popular. People like hanging out with you. I only eat burritos. My limit of discussion is very small. So you would be able to sell those tickets or encourage people to come to the event for those tickets for your table. Those are the types of things that we're helping organizations do with the.
And you kind of led on to a feature that I was going to talk about later on, but I guess I'll jump into it now, is that each of these apps that you offer can be bought and used separately, but they also work together.
Yeah, that's right. You know, without getting too technical, because we want organizations to be able to have choice, that's really deep in our open source roots, but we also want things to be as simple or as seamless as possible. There has to be some balance there.
Hmm.
And so what we've done with the Soapbox Engage suite of apps is to say you can choose these a la carte one at a time. However, they can also flow into each other or across each other, and at the same time also pick up information from one to the other. So the donations in the events app, they play well together, hand in hand, the ability to register for an event, make a donation at the same time. Same thing with some of our other apps, like our shop app. You can go ahead and buy something from the store that an organization has, some merchandise, a tote bag, and a coffee mug, and also make a donation as part of that process there too. I think what we actually find some of the challenges end up being on how the data gets stored in your database. Because sure, like we can make your online web pages look fantastic, do anything you really need them to do. But if the data isn't normalized in some way in your database, well, darn, finance is not going to be happy when they're trying to
Mm.
reconcile things. Running reports is going to be really tough if you're not organizing it properly to go into a database like Salesforce. So there's always this tightrope that we're walking of, can we give organizations all the flexibility that they need, but at the same time recognize the data's got to go somewhere beyond just Soapbox Engage. And when it gets there, we're the type of team that just dives deep. We're not going to say it's an integration, like good luck, go talk to somebody else. Like we really want to make sure it ends up in a good home. So as these apps work together, oftentimes there might not be a data model solution in the database you're looking for that can consume all of that in one place. So we're always mindful of that. And that just means it might take a little longer to get those working for a particular organization.
So going back to the shop for a second, because we'll talk about databases a bit later. So the shop is more like an e-commerce, it's a shopping cart type of thing where you can put up products, whether they're virtual products or gift in kind or actual products that a organization could sell through shop. Is that right?
Bingo. Exactly. We want to make it easy for folks to have a one-stop shop, ha ha ha, a one-stop shop to be able to sell merchandise. And I would also say that, you know, the e-commerce world, specifically for nonprofits, it's kind of slim pickings. There aren't many tools out there that are specifically built for nonprofits trying to do e-commerce, either from a pricing perspective, from a data model perspective, from an integrations perspective, or what we're selling perspective. On that last point as to what organizations are selling or people are ordering from them, it's not always merchandise. Like we're working with an organization right now that's saying, hey, we've got merchandise to sell, but we also use the shop app inside Soapbox Engage to be able to let people order brochures and flyers and documents and books that will be distributed into local communities that can then be shared from a person who's kind of out in the field. They can order it using our shop app that can draw down on inventory, and then you'll know, yep, send 500 books to this particular place in this location there. So it's beyond just the basic concept of how do I sell things, and more about, well, how do I let people that might be my own team or our own supporters place orders to be able to order things that are not necessarily merchandise that we're selling.
That's really cool. Wow. Okay. So the next app is classes. Can you tell me a bit more about how classes work?
We worked with a lot of organizations, especially mid-sized and larger organizations that like the events app, but they found it limiting when they're trying to essentially sell instructional content. So think about, you are a local community rec center, recreation center, or you're an organization in the arts community, and you've got people that want to take classes from a course catalog that you've got. Well, the events app is really nice because it allows you to make a bunch of events, but they don't really hang out together. Like every event's kind of just separate, just one-off event after another. You see this in a lot in the event space. So we really wanted to have something that brought forward a simplified kind of course catalog approach, and at the same time added a bunch of things the events app didn't have under the hood. So concepts of semesters and instructors and locations and different ways to tag events so that when I'm looking for the event, it's less about does it show up on a calendar and more about, hey, I'm Alex. I can only do things after 5 p.m. on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I'm only interested in visual arts and performing arts. Show me what you've got in the course catalog there. So it really takes the events app at its core and says, how do we supercharge this to go far beyond what the events app can do out of the box for one event at a time, and make the discoverability process, make the engagement process, make the concept of even parents trying to sign up their children for different courses and classes in like arts or music or summer camps. How do we make that easy for them to be able to do all in one transaction? That's what the Classes app has been doing for organizations. So rather than one-off events, it's really diving deep into saying, let's show them a catalog of options and let them purchase multiple events at the same time.
Are most of the classes live events, or are they pre-recorded, or they could be a combination of both?
They can be a combination. I would say that the most common use case we saw pre-pandemic, and now again, as we're on the other side of the, hopefully the worst of the pandemic, have been live, typically in-person events. But we've seen a lot of organizations get pretty creative, and rather than having them pre-recorded, they tend to be live webinars that they're having. Now we've seen that continuing to evolve and change, but I think from the Classes app perspective, they tend to be done live, either in person or online.
So you have an integration then to some kind of video conferencing type software?
Yeah, that's right. So we spent a lot of time making sure organizations could do more connectivity between their virtual delivery of their events and the registration process and the attendance process for those events. So the Events app and the Classes app both seamlessly integrate with Salesforce, of course, but also with Zoom. So many organizations using Zoom. For those many organizations, if you are delivering your instruction, if you're delivering your event via Zoom, well, then that's great. Either with Zoom meetings or Zoom webinars, you can connect any of your Soapbox Engage events or classes. And when somebody registers for an event or a class, it'll automatically make them a participant in Zoom. It'll automatically get them a join link. It'll automatically send them all the email notifications to let them know the join links. It'll automatically store all that information inside Salesforce. And then when they show up to the virtual event, it'll log when they join and when they leave, as many times as it happens, which is really helpful for organizations that are doing the classes functionality for things like instructional credits that are necessary to get a certification, to listen to a podcast like this, to be part of a webinar, whatever it takes from an instructional perspective, to clock X number of minutes or hours of time and have all that automatically stored in a database like Salesforce. That's the types of integrations we're doing for kind of webinars.
That's wonderful. So the next app is Forms. Can you talk a bit more about how Forms work, and especially in combination with some of the other apps we've talked about already?
The Forms app had a goal of saying there's a lot of people that like to use different donation or pages to build forms for donations. There's a very specific process for doing event and class registrations. There was even a process on the shop app as to like, you're going to a store, you want to find things. So we found that with those, that was fantastic, but we had a ton of organizations that were coming to us saying, I just want a contact us page. I just want a newsletter sign up page. I just want somebody to say hi. And we needed to help them be able to point and click build a form that when we built it was specifically for nonprofit organizations using Salesforce that didn't have the time or the money to potentially use more expensive tools, but needed the flexibility to be able to say, I've got this object, or I've got this data that I want to collect for a contact us or for a newsletter or a survey or a questionnaire, whatever that might be. And I need the flexibility of knowing where to send it. The Forms app allows you to do that. And in addition to that, it really works nicely with other apps like the Directories app, which we'll probably talk about in a moment, in that if you're finding things through Soapbox Engage, if you see something, the Forms app allows you to edit records in a database like Salesforce. So it's not just like submit a new record, like a new contact us form. But also, depending on how you've got things configured with things like the directories app, you can actually say, hey, I'm logged into a portal. I'm looking at something and that's my contact information. I want to just edit that. And so I can just click a button, edit it. And with the Forms app, an admin's able to select, here's the fields you get to edit. Here's what it's going to look like. And when I hit the save button, it's doing an update in the database to make sure that that updated contact information is stored. So it works solo when it comes to things like basic forms, surveys, questionnaires, but it works really nicely with the directories app for folks that want to provide an experience where you're actually editing existing records.
That's a great segue to actually the next app is the directories app. So tell me a bit more about that one by itself and then how it plays well with forms.
Being a firm that helped organizations with their website, we realized that locked in a database is often a wealth of knowledge and information that an organization wants to share. Imagine you're a think tank here in Washington, D.C. You've got a ton of publications and documents, and you want people to be able to search that. You need journalists to find it. You need politicians to read it. You need the community to understand it. So we've built the directories app to help organization essentially unlock all that data that's inside Salesforce and expose it publicly or privately through a portal to the world as they see fit. Now, this can be with open-ended searches. So imagine you are a think tank and you've got a trove of publications you want people to search. Fantastic. You can point and click your way to building a complex or a simple search form to actually find records in any object anywhere in Salesforce that you see fit. Or maybe you've got a more specific use case that you want members of an association to log into a portal and to say, hey, show me other members, show me other people that are in this network. And you want to do that in a more private manner. Soapbox Engage's directories app allows you to connect to any object in Salesforce, display that as a searchable form, as just a readable, read-only directory, and lets you drill down through that process of search, see results, drill down on one specific record. So it's great for anybody who's trying to expose the data they've got inside Salesforce, either publicly or.
So when you say privately, do you mean like it's a kind of, so publicly means, of course, you don't need to authenticate. You just go onto the website. You can see all the information just like you would a donation or event or a class. But are there certain elements of the directory or other apps where you have to first register first to some kind of portal and then get access to very exclusive information that only people who registered and maybe or were approved get access to it?
Yeah, one of the things that we're really proud of is way back in the day, like early days of something like Salesforce portals, maybe like 2006, 2007, we'd been working with a lot of organizations that had membership and they needed their members to be able to log into a website and then to be able to see things after they've been authenticated as an active member. So there needed to be this kind of like dance between the website or the portal, allowing them to have usernames and passwords and that they properly authenticate. But even in addition to that, we needed to check to make sure like, hey, that's great that they've authenticated that, Alex said he's really Alex by proving he knows his username and password. But is Alex's membership status active? Did Alex pay his last bill? Is Alex somebody who should be at a particular level now that has access to certain things at a certain level within this website? So we've really expanded far beyond just these apps and built add-ons like our portals add-on, or we call it user integration, which allows somebody to effectively log into a portal or really anywhere you want to put a login button on your website. And once they do that, it unlocks kind of personalized or members only access to any of the apps and the data within them inside Soapbox Engage. So if you're logged in through the Soapbox Engage portal and you go to a donation page, all your contact information from Salesforce pre-populates in the form. You go to register for an event. It knows not only who you are, but if the admin has configured it, all of your family members. So if you're a parent that just wants to register multiple children for multiple classes across different summer camps, you'd be able to do that and you wouldn't have to type in anybody's contact information. If you're using the directories app and you want to see members only directory, that is only accessible on a field by field basis to people who have logged in, that have an active membership status, and are at the gold level. Let's just make up some attributes there. Our combination of our portal services, or as we call it, the user integration add-on, unlocks all of that members only or authentication required access to a trove of data and features that exist inside Soapbox Engage.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really cool to see such a plethora of applications just work so well together, and just knowing that, you can, like you said, a la carte, you can choose the ones that fit you, or just say, look, I want most of it or all of it, and just have everything work together more or less seamlessly. It takes the thinking off and the challenges off the shoulders of the director of a nonprofit, and really empowers them to just use the tools to how they need to be used.
Yeah, we've really found that, we enjoy helping organizations build their one donation page, and we're glad to help organizations create a contact us form. But what's really special is when you see these smaller organizations that are so passionate about their causes, especially here in a place like Washington, D.C., where you've got issue-based organizations. They're on a tight budget, and they're touching a variety of things, from advocacy to events for rallies, to raising money, to getting people to like sign pledges, to getting folks to like become a member and then become a long-term supporting member. Like, that's actually a small organization with complex needs because they're tackling big challenges in the world. And so when we get a chance to work with folks like that, I just get giddy. We get so excited because it is a rare situation to be able to have in one platform all of these apps that are working well together. And so either the power organizations that are larger, that already understand the value of having everything in one place, or the smaller folks that are on a budget but still need to have the right functionality in the right location all together. That's where I think we really just hit the ground running for organizations really strongly. So it's always fun to work with those types of groups.
So it sounds like you actually do work with and support and find that these apps are a good fit for either the smaller nonprofits and the larger ones as well.
Yeah, I like to say that our passion is really moving the needle for the smallest organizations that have the most potential to do so much new good in the world. At the same time, the largest of organizations see the value at an enterprise-ready solution that was been really hardened and secured over the course of the last, decade and a half to get them what they need at a more complex and robust level as well.
I love that quote, new good in the world. I might steal that from you. All right, so let's see. Next app is the Petitions app. Can you talk a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, the Petitions app really speaks to, a lot of the groups that we serve here in Washington, D.C., that are doing issue-based, kind of policy-focused engagements with their community. And it's really to say, how do we make it simple for folks to be able to make petitions so they can have people sign them online, not have to feel like they need to pay per signee or per petition. The goal here, how do we help you engage with your community, maybe even bring new advocates onto your mailing list because you're getting them to take a pledge or to sign an electronic petition to then in the future take maybe some other potential action. So it's really meant to keep it simple, but to go beyond what you'd have in a simple form and provide all the things you would see in a modern advocacy petition, from gauges to call to action photos, embedded videos, all that sort of fun stuff, and then allow people to make comments on those.
And not the last one, second to last one that I wanted to talk about was Actions. I don't know much about Actions.
Yeah, so if you take the Petitions app and you think about that as being just like somebody walking with a clipboard and letting you sign and leave a comment for a particular pledge or an action or an issue, the Actions app actually says what the organization is trying to do is to be the post office. They're the ones actually helping the constituent or helping the advocate deliver a message that the organization has helped them write to their decision maker. So in this case, rather than signing a petition to say, save the whales, what if you had all of your constituents actually send an electronic message, a letter to their decision makers in, say, US Congress or member of parliament or local town dog catcher, whatever it might be, from custom targets to decision makers and legislative branches. The Actions app actually allows the organization to help custom craft a letter that the constituent can then modify and make more personalized, and then deliver that message directly to a decision maker that is representing that constituent. So it takes the petitions app and it kind of like levels it up significantly in terms of delivering that message to the right decision maker.
That's great. And then the last app, the one that I'm most familiar with actually, is the mass emailer, the newsletter Soapbox Mailer, I think the title is.
Yeah. So, when you're helping organizations with all this inbound stuff, inbound data collection for donations, event registrations, petitions, actions, like that begs the question, how are they going to know this thing exists? How are they going to know to make a donation? How are they going to know that you should go register for one of these events? And back in 2012, 13, wow, that was 10 years ago, Alex. Oh my gosh. Okay. So a decade ago, before there were such a plethora of email marketing tools, especially in the Salesforce world, we said there needed to be an affordable on-platform Salesforce email marketing tool that was accessible to every nonprofit, like so accessible that our pricing is based on your organization's publicly posted annual budget. And the idea was, how do we get folks to be able to get access to these tools to send messages to their own communities? How do we make it easy to make a newsletter? How do we make it easy for folks to be able to target somebody in a particular zip code or in a particular state or province, whatever it takes to let marketing folks and communication folks get the power of Salesforce to target the right folks and then send messages with beautiful emails. I think we were the first on platform, actually App Exchange Force.com built email marketing solution before there were acquisitions of other much, much, much larger, much more complex tools that are out there. So it's great for folks that are looking to do newsletters and ad hoc messaging through email, keep it simple, but also track opens, clicks, bounces, unsubscribes, even our own newsletters, like the pub crawl for the nonprofit Salesforce community, things like that all run off.
As a architect, I'm a bit of a geek, obviously, and what I really enjoy about the Soapbox Mailer is that it uses Amazon to send out the emails. So Amazon is extremely reliable. It's extremely certain emailers have issues in just being able to send it. The reputation is not as strong as Amazon. Amazon is one of the top, if not the top, most reliable newsletter sender. So to have that integration between Salesforce and Amazon by using the Soapbox Mailer, to me is like, it tingles all my architect, all the tingles I have for as an architect. So it's
Yeah.
great.
We like to say, we're good at some things like building engaging web pages and eating burritos, but we're not so good at becoming the electronic post office for every major nonprofit in the US and the Salesforce platform. So we decided to divide and conquer and said, we're great at building apps on the Force.com platform. We're really keen and understand email communication and marketing, but we're not going to be the ones delivering the message. So why don't we partner with the company that's got the most interest to make sure emails get delivered, an Amazon Web Services show. So that's been
I think that it's a good philosophy in life in general is to leverage people's and organizations' strengths, right? If you said, if you're good at one thing, then do that one thing. But if you're not good at something, then leverage the tool of somebody else, the knowledge or the expertise of someone else. And that's a key element I find in anything in business and life too, actually.
And for us, when it came to Soapbox Engage, that's 8, 9 different apps we've been talking about here. I think one of the value adds that we want to kind of always keep in mind before we add a 9th and a 10th app is really saying, at some point, how do we make sure that all these organizations get value in the complete suite, like the full solution? Because if you just start fragmenting too far off into different places, then you're right. Like, you become a super generalist, you're not providing enough value add, and you end up kind of fighting one app, one solution at a time across a wide variety of solutions. So we're also really trying to be focused on, as we've been adding apps, how does it add value to an organization that could potentially use all of them in concert? So I think making that's been our fence test. Like if it is too far a degree away, if somebody wanted us to build something completely different that's going to auto drive cars with who knows what, that's just not going to fit in terms of adding more value to the suite of apps.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. You don't want to overextend yourself to an area that you doesn't fit well with the rest of
Right.
the apps. And all these apps, we talked a bit about Salesforce because they all connect to Salesforce, but I understand that you've also now recently gone into the Microsoft Dynamics space as well, right? Do they all support both platforms, and are there others, or is it mostly Salesforce and then once in a while it'll be Dynamics?
Yeah, that's a good question. When we first started on Soapbox Engage, most folks don't know that Soapbox Engage actually began in the early days working with two nonprofit specific solutions, which were Civi CRM and Democracy in Action, which has been since renamed Salsa Labs. And we really wanted to do what we're doing today with those types of platforms. We made a decision in 2008, I think it was, to really dive deep in a Salesforce integration to the point where our apps were almost exclusively built specifically to help organizations using Salesforce. But as we went along building it, we always took extra time to do it in a way that we knew in the future we could connect to additional databases and services over time, because we knew we didn't want to become a CRM. Like, we don't want to be a CRM. We don't want to be the database of record for organizations. We really want to be focused on engagement. So over the course of the last 3 years, starting probably in 2018 and 2019, we've been working more closely with the folks at Microsoft Tech for Social Impact that have also been great partners to help us better understand the 250,000 nonprofits in the US that are using a Microsoft product, and could continue to expand into the Microsoft Dynamics space. So much like the work we're doing with Salesforce and connectivity, most of our apps, but not all of them as of now, are either on the path to have fully been integrated or will be fully integrated already with Microsoft Dynamics for fundraising, for event registration. And just like in the Salesforce world, there's different flavors of different types of tools you can use on the Dynamics platform. So it's been exciting to see that community and ecosystem grow.
Because I have a bias towards Salesforce, just wanted to know, because there are different flavors to your point of Salesforce. The most common one used for nonprofits is the Nonprofit Cloud, or NPSP, which is called the Nonprofit Success Pack. Is there any particular version of Salesforce that an organization needs to have to be able to use your apps, or is it to support all of them?
Yeah. Unfortunately for our engineering team, but fortunately for nonprofits, we support more flavors of Salesforce than there are flavors of ice cream in your common ice cream store. We support plain vanilla enterprise edition, the nonprofit success pack version 3, which is the most current one, nonprofit success pack v2, which some folks still have. We support person accounts. We support different types of account models. We support a FinaQuest. There's just a wide variety of options. And I think that that's one of the things I'd want listeners to take away. I think that unfortunately, the word integration doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. And it is important to understand how deep the technology goes and making sure your data ends up in the right place and that they've worked alongside the folks that have built the database technologies that you're using. Because that's what you want to make sure is that it's all flowing into the right place. So we're proud of that track record. It can sometimes be challenging to support old versions of software, but you've got passionate organizations that still have a need there, and we're not going to tell them they have to upgrade or change their database data model. So we've got a wide variety of options.
So in addition to all these great products, I know you offer certain services to complement these products. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, we're a bunch of most of the folks on our team come from the nonprofit space. Some of us are technical wonky policy folks like me. Some folks have worked on the front lines of fundraising for nonprofits. Other folks have run their own nonprofit organizations. So we bring to the table more than just how do you build a web page and how do you make it engage with a database. And we bring 13, 15 plus years of experience on the Salesforce side. So I'm a 9-year Salesforce MVP. We've got certified Salesforce folks on staff here. We really want to help organizations think holistically about what they're doing when it comes to online engagement, database services, et cetera. What we recognize our value add as being is thinking that bigger picture and helping organizations not just implement a tool, but to think about all the connectivity that might need to happen. Because when you've got somebody filling out a newsletter sign up form using the Forms app, well, it needs to go into Salesforce in a certain way. And that's probably going to connect with their email marketing tool. Maybe it's Soapbox Mailer, or maybe it's MailChimp, or maybe it's Pardot. So there ends up being more than just break fix style solutions that need to happen for organizations. And we're here to help them. We also know our lane. We're not going to be building out big solutions for nonprofits that are using tools like Salesforce. We've got good expert folks and friends in mind, Alex. And I think we want to recommend them to go to instead. But when it comes to just like help me work with my Salesforce consultant, or just help us understand like what we should be thinking about as we're implementing these tech tools, we provide those services as well.
So it's like it's a full support type service. I know you guys have webinars that are available for the public, office hours, regular scheduled office hours. So it's really, it's like you said, it's not just a here it is, deal with it. It's no, we're going to get you going. We'll hold your hand along the way, and when needed, we can refer you to a partner that can help you take that step even further.
Absolutely. I think the thing that gets us most excited is not just the technology, but it's the community. And that community goes far beyond the bounds of our homes and offices and cities. It's around the world. We're all one huge ecosystem of folks trying to do good in the world. And anything we can do to be part of that collaborative process, from helping build NPSP days to helping build the Nonprofit Success Pack sprints, from being engaged in different community efforts. These are some of the joys that we have in the work that we get to do. And I think the more you recognize that we're all connected in an ecosystem of folks trying to do good, the more you realize, well, I can specialize in one thing. It might be helpful for me to lend a hand out.
So what is the future of Soapbox Mailer? Or Soapbox Engage and Mailer? Where do you see the roadmap for the next couple of months or couple of years?
We got some really exciting things happening in a couple of areas. So on one side, we just announced some pretty big integrations that are going to be coming out with Salesforce identities or Salesforce communities. Imagine you're an organization that wants people to have a true member fundraiser, supporter portal experience that looks great and allows you to continue to build out on the Salesforce side the concept of an identity of a user for all of your constituents. We've got some great administrator integration with Salesforce now, and we've got some great front-end experience integration for single sign-on processing. So for technical folks, that's going to be really great to make sure that there's centralization of user management, but gives you a ton of robustness when it comes to being able to be flexible in like portals or a community's experience. We're also continuing to dive deeper into helping organizations think about automations and AI and other kind of cloud computing solutions that are going to help in fundraising efforts. So our donations app and our events app particularly are continuing to expand just to help folks make it easier to build these pages, to make them even more beautiful, but then to also recognize that, you know, there are things that we can start to do as you're considering integrating with like a wealth management, or not wealth management, a kind of a wealth search solution that's helping folks be able to find the right donors as well too. We want to be thinking about those types of integrations and making it just easier for them to use. So I think of all the apps, I would say that the donations app, the events app, and the shop app are the ones that we see the most engagement with our community to want to do more with it. For those that are just on the Salesforce platform, we're really excited by the things we're able to do with Soapbox Mailer to keep finding ways to innovate, but keep it light and simple for them. And then for those other apps kind of in the in-between land, we're continuing to evolve those as the community's looking for them. So super excited, especially around, say, fundraising and online event.
Yeah, it's really cool to see the evolution of your products, and I'm really excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, it's you know, When you've been when you've been doing something for 21 years, you start to say, are we doing the same thing? Are we reinventing? Are we recycling? Like, what's happening here? And I feel like even doing something for 2 decades, the technology is always changing, from security things to consider to different types of currency, virtual currency, to be thinking about cross-border payments. We're in a challenging world right now, and people want to be able to give donations from the US to other countries. And sometimes that can be a really big challenge, but technology has an opportunity to make that happen. So it's exciting to get involved in that. And at the same time, making sure that organizations can trust the tools that they're using, and they don't have to worry about security. They don't have to worry about privacy. We want to guard on both of those sides while still innovating.
Ryan, this has been great. Where can people find out more about you online?
Yeah, so you can learn more about the company over at soapboxengage.com. I hang out now more and more on LinkedIn. I don't know about you, Alex, but I'm kind of tired with the rest of my social media feeds
Hmm.
these days. So I do feel there's some normalized kind of standard settings still living in the LinkedIn business world. So I'm doing more to post and share and be parts of engagements there. Ryan Ozimek over on.
Perfect. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, that's all for today. I'm Alexander Lapa, and I hope you join me again next time for Agents of Nonprofit.